And I like to remind people, like, from baby boomer to Generation Z, there has been a lot of, like, we're talking like Woodstock to TikTok, right? Like, the amount of change between that has been humongous. And that's the range we're dealing with in the workplace.
In a world that often pulls us apart, More in Common brings us back to what matters. Hosted by Gerren Taylor and Keith Richardson, this isn't your average podcast. It's a challenge to think deeper, question louder, and grow further. At More in Common, we work with NFL teams, tech companies, and professionals across industries to improve communication and foster compassion. And with a focus on emotional intelligence, we aim to bring a wealth of experience to help you navigate the complexities of human connection. We've never been more connected and yet more isolated. We want to explore the roots of that tension and offer a way back to what we all need: real human connection. Enjoy the show.
Yeah, that was a
Amazing.
generational moment right there.
Yep.
That was definitely a generational reference.
100%.
Because if you grew up in the 90s and you ever saw basketball, you know
Yeah.
that song, or any sort of sporting event, to be honest with you.
I was
Yeah.
going to say, unless you were living under a rock. No, I shouldn't say that.
Unless you were in that village where you didn't have a cell phone. No.
Yeah.
Maybe your individual experience did not experience you all ready for this, but most of us,
We
one of those
did, yep.
cultural references, like,
I hope I don't get in trouble.
you.
I'm gonna try to sneak a snippet of the song in there. So.
Yeah.
Let's big
Love
hey, we haven't monetized our podcast yet, right? Like you can't.
We're never gonna make it in witches. This is the More in Common podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson. Joining us again this week is Kelly Brinkman, a presenter and generational dynamics expert at Bridgeworks, where she helps workplaces build stronger collaboration across generations with degrees in journalism and sociology and a love for dogs. She brings research and real-world insight to today's evolving workforce. A proud millennial, which if you were with us last week, we discussed this being the best generation. Kelly blends cultural perspective and data-driven strategy. She's also a marathoner. So you just all-around badass, Kelly.
I am a sucker for pain, Whether it's the pain of 75 dog paws walking all over me or running 20 miles every Sunday, I'm in. Sign me up.
Or navigating generational differences and getting people to
Yes.
look at it pragmatically and not so emotionally.
Yes.
I mean, just dealing with boomers in general is already. No.
Hey, that is a generational stereotype. And I take offense because I am like 50% boomer, okay?
I feel like a boomer. Yeah.
I do. My
Protest the
bedtime,
Vietnam
my
War.
routines, no.
I love that for you, though. Do you wear like a little bonnet too? Like super
Yep.
boomer?
I've got very comfortable shoes. Let's see what else. No.
New Balance.
Yes. Why not?
The white with the
And
blue
so,
letter.
last week we were talking about defining the generations themselves, and I used the generational stereotype there. I admit, but and in your work, you obviously see this come up a lot. So, do you get a lot of like interviews with the Zers going like, "These boomers just don't get me," kind of thing, or like?
Yes. And the thing is, what I kind of talk about is like stereotypes have evolved and are a thing because, as Keith alluded to, they help us navigate the world more quickly. If we can make these snap judgments, a lot of the times it helps us get through our day a little bit easier because we're not having to constantly process. But in that same way that they're helpful, they're really hurtful because we can't just lump everybody together. And if we don't understand the background and we just assume stereotypes are correct, we're taking we're almost taking that, issue or that inaccuracy and we're letting it snowball and get bigger and bigger so that we do evolve to the point where we're going, okay, boomer, when we really don't know. Do you know anything about boomers and their background and why they are the way they are?
And if I could add just a little bit to that, because I think it's really important when it comes to stereotypes. And I always challenge anybody, what informs your stereotype, right? Because we are so connected globally like we've never been in human history. But, there was a report that came out a few years ago that concluded that 75% of white Americans have exposure or friendship with one or fewer Black people, right? Like, so, but we still form stereotypes. But what is informing those stereotypes, whether it's media, and when I say media, I mean movies, or TV, or just the people you talk to who say something and tell you a story, because story is so influential to our perspective in the world. And
Mhm.
so so this is what I love about this conversation is let's inform our perspective of generations. And there's a lot of directions I want to go, but I know Garen wanted to talk about something specific.
Well, no, I mean, I think we're already into it, just like those workplace stereotypes that we experience, right? So, Gen Z is aloof and uncommitted. You know what I mean? As a thing that you hear a lot, or the
Millennials are
communication gaps, as we were
entitled
mentioning. Some
and
people they can't handle Slack because it's too instantaneous, and they prefer the delayed responsive email. So I just kind of wanted to deal with some of those stripes, what you see in your work, and how we navigate.
Yep. And so what we talk about at Bridgeworks is sort of based on the collective research that's out there to help people understand kind of the top three traits that might manifest in a generation. Now, again, as I alluded to last time, every individual is a wonderful and unique snowflake. And so I always sort of warn my
not to be
audiences.
confused with like being overly sensitive and like the
Exactly,
pejorative use of the
exactly.
word
It's the
snowflake, like
uniqueness. The uniqueness. Yes, that is what I'm getting at. So,
Yeah.
every individual will hear this and probably relate to what I'm saying to a certain degree. They may, some people may be like 100% that is me. Some people may be like 50% that is me. And then another individual altogether will go, I fall into a completely different category. I relate to this other group more than my chronological age. And that's okay. But the point is the majority of this generation have turned out this way because of the similar experience they had. So we see baby boomers, we talk about their competitiveness. This was a generation of 80 million people who grew up in an American infrastructure that was not built for 80 million people. I mean, there are stories of schools that didn't have enough books, that didn't have enough desks, like literally kids sitting on the floor sharing, one book between three students.
When
And
I was
so
a kid.
yeah, exactly. Way back when, no, but the point being, when they got into the job market, it was the same thing. They had to fight for every opportunity that came their way. And so we see this competitive nature, and we also see this sort of professional buttoned up structure type of presence with them, because not only was the infrastructure of pretty much everything in America sort of based on the military chain of command, but standing out by looking the part, so to speak. They were the generation who kind of coined the phrase, dress for the job you want, not the job you have. That was a way to stand out and distinguish yourself. But not only that, but the society in general. I joke with audiences, I fly all the time, right? So if I went to an airport in the 1960s, people were wearing suits and ties, and women were in skirts and heels, and they were smoking on the tarmac, but that's a different story. And then we go forward to today, and I go to the airport, and I can't tell you how many people I see in pajama pants, even in
Well, maybe not so much
athleisure.
anymore, but we won't get
Yeah.
into that policy proposal.
Yeah. But the
Yeah.
idea is, it was their experience. So when they get in the workforce, and they come to work and they're all dressed up, and everybody else, a lot of places have sort of relaxed the standards. It's kind of like, oh, they're so, stoic, and they're so old fashioned, and they're this, that, and they're the other. And it's like, no, that was their expectation. That was what was expected from them because of the time and because of the situation that they started their careers in. Right. And then they're also very idealist. They're the type of people who took part in the counterculture movements, women's rights, civil rights, anti-war movements, different things of that nature. And so they have this very like idealist, we can do whatever we want, and we should strive for achievement and for perfection and success. And there's that sort of innate like, I am going to stay early, I am going to or come in early, I am going to stay late, I am going to burn both ends of the candle, I will do above and beyond, right? Because that's what is going to feed this company and prove that I work hard and I'm, that's very important to them. And then you have Generation X coming onto the scene. The main sort of characteristics we see coming out of them, as we discussed a little bit last time, is that huge sense of independence and self sort of reliance, self sufficiency, because they grew up in a world where they couldn't always count on the people and the institutions and the economy around them. Yeah.
Can I
Kids
ask a
drinking from the
question about
hose.
that? Yeah, like, so oftentimes this generational conversation at work is millennial and baby boomer, right? And like we think about that Gen X in between. So you said it last week, like they're the forgotten generation. How much conflict is created there because of that level of independence, which then inherently is anti-hierarchical
Right.
and
Yes.
anti-authority. And
Yes.
so I'm hitting a button, you're smiling. So
Yeah.
just
Yes.
go. Just go. I don't have a
So
clear,
you're
concise question.
absolutely
So I'm
right.
just
Yeah, you're absolutely right, because you sort of addressed the one side, the baby boomers, who are very structural, very hierarchical, very like chain of command. You see the Gen Xers who are very independent. And then on the other side too, you have these millennials who like, let's do it all together, team projects, group projects, let's talk it through, let's brainstorm, let's, whatever. And the Xer is sitting there in the middle going like, they're too rigid on this side. Like, I can get my work done. I don't need somebody micromanaging me, pulling me along, giving me directives. Like, I don't need that. And then I certainly don't want to spend, 30 minutes at a coffee shop chit-chatting before I get to my, task at hand. So they are like stuck, again, I'm grouping them as a
generalizing.
group, but
Yeah.
yeah. Yep. So
Sociologically speaking. Yeah. We'll
yeah.
clarify that over and
So they
over. Yeah.
are sort of in this like landscape of like, this neither side is comfortable to me. But that's where it's so important that we are acknowledging the differences. We are saying to our millennials, like, just because your boss gave you a one-word response doesn't mean you're in trouble. It doesn't mean you're getting fired. It means that is how they communicate. They are efficient. If you're saying 50 different things, but you only asked one question, they're going to respond to that one question and leave it at that. And same with on the other side. If you're, a baby boomer who's like, okay, we need to structure, I need to see this step, this step, this step, and this step to get to the process or to get to the result. And the extra is going, I can skip all those steps and still get to the same result. You do have those, but that's again, acknowledge that, talk about it. Like, I can get you the results you want if you'll relax a little bit with the directives. Trust me, I will earn your trust. I will show you through repetition. We will establish that understanding. Just give me the chance. And same with millennials. Have the conversation like, listen, think you're great, but the way I work best is efficient. Like, only check in when you need to check in. Get your work done. That is my style. Have these conversations when the moment of friction comes up.
And just a little bit of gossip at the coffee shop. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I always joke, like, everybody has their own Stanley mugs now. How do we have water cooler talk anymore? Like, where do I get the hot gas? Like, I need
It's part
that.
of it. Well, and I
Yep.
want to bring that up too, because as it overlaps with remote work and how
Yes.
people see these values and the work-life balance, a lot that we've been talking about as people, with millennials and Gen Zers are like, I don't want to be there all day. Like, I'm good.
Yes. Yep. So baby
And
boomers,
if I could add to that, just
yeah.
sorry, because I want to
Nope.
add my own thought to it and hear myself talk. To that point, you also have the majority of company owners and executives are late stage boomers, right? Or maybe early stage Xers, but particularly late stage boomers who then have that perspective of come back to the office, right? And for me, this is one of those things I would love to explore because I get irritated by it as a concept because we have data that supports work at home being more productive and this, that, and the other thing. But that formative element of that
Yes.
hierarchical chain, and this is how we do it, and we just show up to work and is super eye-opening from my perspective because I just get annoyed by it. But it's like, oh, okay, I can see why that is because it is part of their formative neurodevelopment.
Yeah. Oh, this is such a loaded baked potato. Like, there's so much here I can talk about. Like, so first of all, the expectation, you're absolutely right. It's rooted in those formative experiences where FaceTime meant productivity to baby boomers. You had to be there giving FaceTime to be valuable, to be acknowledged as a contributing member to this, workforce. Generation X, we start to see that step away from personal sacrifice for professional purposes and say, okay, I will be here 9 to 5, but don't contact me before or after 9 to 5, and don't expect me to, go to an optional company function on the weekend. I will not be there, and that should not count against me, right? And then you have millennials who, again, new technology, new tools, new capabilities, who start to say, not only do I want more work life balance, I want flexibility in that balance. Like, if I'm in a business where we're dealing with global clients, why does it matter if I work 9 to 5? Like, our clients might not be 9 to 5. So as long as I get my projects done, what does it matter that I'm sitting in a coffee shop or in an office? And then you have Gen Z who comes along, and Gen Z, tricky. They're kind of a dichotomous generation when it comes to this, because so many of them missed really important formative social moments during the COVID pandemic that we actually see them reporting the highest percentage of wanting at least a portion of their work time to be in person. Because number one, they feel like they missed out on sort of the natural growth of some of their soft skills. And number two, they're trying to find their new culture, right? Like, think back to when you were just starting your job. It's like you probably left school or home. So you're in a new physical location. You're maybe quote unquote adulting for the first time, like taking care of your own place, doing your own
All
grocery
the time.
shopping.
I'm adulting for the
Yes.
first time every day.
Making your own meals, trying to find like your new social circle. And a lot of people rely on the workplace to be that. But if you're
Yeah.
just connecting during scheduled Zoom moments, you're not getting those natural bonding interaction moments. And not only that, but, again, contrary to popular belief, this is a generation that wants to achieve. And they know that seeing sort of that achievement, the people who are doing well in their industry, watching them work, absorbing those natural organic moments that are happening in the workplace without needing a formal sit down of like, this is what I'm doing and this is why. Like, they understand there's a value to just being in the room. And so, and then obviously COVID, the COVID effect, right? We talk about BC before COVID and then after COVID. We all learned, like you were saying, there's countless studies out there that say people can be productive out of office. But if we're trying to really grow a company and a company culture, there is a very high value to natural organic interactions. It's just the level of interactions that people may want could vary based on their current lifestyle, right? Generation X that has kids and has parents is like, I have so much on my plate already. I cannot spend an extra moment here. But like, if we have one day in the office where like we have to be here and be present, then I think that, benefits everybody.
Absolutely. Keith, I felt like
I'm
you were
pausing
dying to get so
because
much stuff in there. So
like there's
He's just
so
annoyed
much
that he
I
has to
want to
be
get
here.
in. I totally
he's like, I can do this. Is this a group
done.
project? I can do this by myself.
Like, I got it. Well, it is funny, like just from a personal experience as you're talking about these things, like I do see where I highly value collaboration and personal connection. I am absolutely one of those folks who believes in, and I mean, this is all the work we do relative to personal connection. Like, we can be in the office. I think the ideal structure is, come in 10 to 3 and do it 3 days a week, where that's where you get all your interpersonal, all your gossip, all your chats, all of those things together to build those bonds and relationships. But you're also not adding the stress and anxiety that's
Yes.
associated with what you're talking about with Gen X relative to the baby boomers, where a baby boomer got up at 6 a.m. to go to the office at 7:30 and then wasn't home until 5:30. And what we know just from the human dynamic is that we get tired, right? Like, we only
Yes.
have so many cognitive calories in a day. So now I've got to come home. I've got to parent a child. Like,
Hmm.
that is just the most mentally taxing thing that you can do as a human being. And so now it's at the end of the day where you've invested all of this energy in this other thing. And so removing some of those tension points, right? Like I can get my kid on the bus, I can get them off the bus, I can help them with their homework, and I can feed them breakfast. In the meantime, I can still do the social things. And oh, by the way, I'm still going to get my work done, right? And to the point, whenever work gets done, it gets done. Like if I do it at 8 o'clock at night, so long as it gets done because I needed to get it done today, I can manage that time in a more fluid space. So like it's kind of bringing all the pieces. That's very much the lens I come to the table with when it comes to all of
Yep.
these things.
And I like to remind people, like, you know, from baby boomer to Generation Z, there has been a lot of, like, we're talking like Woodstock to TikTok, right? Like, the amount of change between that has been humongous. And that's the range we're dealing with in the workplace. But then I also like to remind the people of, like, where has the needle started to where it is now didn't happen overnight. It wasn't like this instantaneous jump. We expect people to like jump. Like, it has evolved over time, and it will we have to continue to evolve, right? As our technology changes, as our capabilities change, as the structure of the global economy changes, you know, we have to evolve. So when, you know, I'm sure when baby boomers, when Gen X came on the scene and was like, "Hey, what do you think about this idea like casual Friday where we all wear, you know, our dungarees instead of our slacks?" Baby boomers were probably like,
It's
"My
a
heart," you know?
polo, like a polo
But
in
yeah,
khakis.
but yeah. So like when Z is saying like, what about a 4-day work week? We're all like clutching our pearls, going, how dare they? But like, why? You know, if you have the capability, like you said, if you can sit down and be more structured in your 4 days, knowing you have 4 days to accomplish what you need to accomplish, you have all these tools now, even more with AI, to be productive, to reach your quotas, so to speak. Why is that such an absurd thing? You know, if it helps instances of burnout, if it helps instances of mental health, if it, you know, helps the culture of an organization, why is that so, you know, disruptive to us? And
Well, to
again,
that
it's
point,
about our framework.
how do you experience leadership responding to what you're saying, or how does like a leader listening to this make some of these changes, you know,
Yep.
in their workplace?
So, and this will be a little off of Bridgeworks. This is a little bit more of my personal observations, balanced with what we kind of teach or have observed at Bridgeworks. So Bridgeworks is 100% we're looking at things through a generational lens. There are distinct generational qualities to the generations. But when you get into leadership, I think the people who get to the point of leadership are so dynamic and have gotten to where they are because of their flexibility and their adaptability and their open-mindedness. I mean, I don't think people would disagree that the people who are in leadership positions are generally people who take a little bit of risk, who, you know, don't mind thinking outside of the box to say, you know, this is what's always been done. How can we do it better or do it different to accomplish more, all right, to be better? And so I would say each of the generational leaderships probably definitely carries some of their generational qualities because they can't help but experience that based on their formative experience. But I also think they're probably the people, if we want to refer to the last episode, the analogy, they're probably the people off-roading the most, right? Saying, hey, let's try this, let's incorporate this, let's, you know, do different things to get different results. Because if we always do what we've always done, we'll always get that.
There, an interesting. I'm curious because I know since you mentioned you're bringing in your personal observations, so we're deviating a little bit from known research. So we'll philosophize on this for a second. That leadership dynamic is growing up in a different generation of leadership expectations because now we have
Yes.
leadership development, we have leadership coaching, we have leadership groups. Whereas back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you did get promoted because of who you knew and who you liked, right?
Mm.
And then you just functioned the role because of that hierarchical expectation. So you just did what you were expected to do. You asked people to do what they expected to do. And so the dynamic nature is almost now part of that transition of generations in leadership and everything that we've discussed. Am I off base here? What are your thoughts on that
No,
observation?
I was just gonna say, that's exactly kind of how generations work. You're right on point. Like I even myself, I didn't think of the evolution of that, like all of the other traits. And you're right, it is a function of our environment. Like our our workplace, our landscapes, our day-to-day lives are getting more diverse in our experiences. And so as leadership evolves, you have to be more diverse in your leadership approach, whether it's because, again, more technology available, whether it's because the people you're working with are more diverse, whether it's because the amount of services or products, or, you go down the line on so many different dimensions. And you're right. We are always, I think, asking to do more, and more and more. Like, I mean, you think about, I was joking, I think, Keith, with you about this one time where, like, I went to the store to get deodorant, and it's like, I am so sick of making decisions. Why is there a roll 30 feet long and 12 feet high, just deodorant? Like, give me like 3 options and call it good. But that's not our world anymore. And so, yeah, I think in the workplace, that's sort of the equivalent of having all of those deodorants in front of us, right? Like, we have to know how to make those pieces fit. And so, yeah, to be an effective leader, I think you need to be malleable in that.
I have a question to start wrapping up this week, but we are coming back for another week because there are some things that I really, really want to explore relative to the judgment of generations and how we show up in day-to-day life. So we're going to deviate from the workplace here for a bit, even though that's the expertise and knowledge of the work. But a fun question to pontificate on.
Okay.
We think about the past and how what are the next generations gonna, like, we can't predict what they're gonna experience, but like Gen Z will be the old generation eventually, right? Like they will be the ones going, kids today in the workplace. Like, how do we take this and create protections for ourselves, knowing that we're going to be that person later, and we can give a space that doesn't create such generational conflict in the workplace?
So I first got the giggles because I was having a conversation with my friend the other day. She looks at me and she's like, "Can you think of anyone over 50 named Kyle?" And we're like, I don't know any old Kyles. Like, that's such a millennial name or whatever. And I couldn't help but laugh. I'm like, what I do. That's such a great observation. You're right. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know any Doloreses, but that used to be like a really popular name. So you're right. Like, Kelly is going to be like the old grandma name in 5 years. No, I don't know how long, but
I hope
you're
not 5 years for you,
yeah.
Kelly.
Oh, no, you're absolutely right. And I think my sort of gut and knee jerk reaction is that it's going to happen. And I don't know that our humanity has found a way to navigate that without sort of repeating the same thing, right? Because there's a book out there, I don't know it well enough, but one of my colleagues talks about it all the time, called like The Fourth Turning or The Fourth Season, where essentially in American history, every about 80 years, we sort of repeat the same cycle. And it's, again, same, different. It was the Revolutionary War, it was the Civil War, it was, we're seeing these conflicts and a major disruptive event. And then you have a generation of people working hard, like super, super hard to like get out of that, devastating event. And then you have a generation of people who are sort of in the middle, benefiting from the hard work, but still trying to make progress. And then you have a generation of people who kind of have it on easy street, right? And then you have another disruption. Like, you see, unfortunately, sort of the same cycles, just with different puzzle pieces, so to speak. And so the short answer is, I don't know that our society knows, our humanity knows how to handle that upcoming evolution. And the longer answer would have to involve, like, how do we, educate the masses or make the masses aware of this? How do we get them to believe that this is the reality that's been happening for hundreds of years? And if we don't break out of this 80-year cycle, it's just going to continue. And so, yeah, I think if Keith, if you want to work on that, get ChatGPT going, figure it out. You will be like king of the
I just,
universe.
I
I
think we
gotta
need to
tell
bring
you,
back the
it's
names Theodore and Rupert, and that'll help. As long as we're
Ruth. We need some more Ruths.
Yep. Baby Ruth.
Your answer is so aligned to where I want to talk next week, because I have some very specific questions that I've been waiting to ask for the right context.
Have you been holding it this whole time?
I've got notes. So
he's sweating.
I'm super I'm just like, I gotta go.
That's amazing. Well, we'll wrap this one up so you can get it in there, Keith. All right, we'll call this one a week. How about that? Thank you again, Kelly, for joining us. This is the More in Common podcast. I'm Gerren Taylor. That's Keith Richardson's just gonna jump in next week. He's gonna start.
Yeah, and where does Keith fit in all of these generational names, right? Like,
yeah. Well, my grandpa was named. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I was about to say, got him.
Snap.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. See you next week.